Do you want to act with me in this video? I know you really loved acting with me in the last one. Let's see if we can find... Oh, do you want to act in the video too? AJ here. Welcome back to Art Isn't Easy. And you all met Castiel on the last... Well, fine. That was Timothy Jack, or TJ for short. But today we are going to talk about 1967. But this is where I feel like we really advance further. Like, we get a little bit of the new Hollywood vibe in films like Manchurian Candidate in 1962. But it's 1967 where I think the canon shoots off. And there is a book, Mark Harris's Pictures at a Revolution, that really dives into the 1967 Oscar race. Now, the 5 nominees for Best Picture that year were Bonnie and Clyde and The Graduate. Those two kind of represented the direction Hollywood was heading in. You had In the Heat of the Night, which was kind of a middle ground. It dealt with racism in the South. You had the very bigoted sheriff played by Rod Steiger, and then you had Sidney Poitier in one of his noble, man of color roles, which these days those roles do get a lot of flack. I get why he did them at the time, but basically it's like Hollywood was catering to the bigots of the South, which, as we've learned in today's society, we should probably not really give a damn what they think. So there's that one. There's Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which also tackles the idea of race, also with Sidney Poitier. And that one, even though it does deal with the idea of interracial marriage, it still feels mostly very clean and pristine, as if it could have been plucked from the 50s. It's a solid film, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's not going to be on this list. And then lastly, the 5th nominee was Dr. Dolittle, which not going to address that one because that's clearly Fox bought that. And then not only that, you have the film winning Best Original Song for Talk to the Animals, which is also another crazy win. But we'll get a little deeper into that race in a moment. Now, In the Heat of the Night won Best Picture, which was not expected at the time. I once saw someone online say that they were convinced that the voting tallies were changed because these Oscars were delayed because it coincided with the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Now, I really don't think that they changed the ballots for that purpose, but it is interesting to see how that middle ground film of sorts was selected. You could argue that a film like Moonlight winning a decade ago could have been in response to the Oscars so white controversy. Also, Trump got elected, sadly, for the first time back then. In 1967, actor Gregory Peck became president of the Academy. And one of his, there's Castiel again, one of the things that Gregory Peck hoped to achieve at the time was bringing in voices of the youth and more diversity. He acknowledged that Hollywood needed to change. His mind was on the right path. And one of the films that he was wanting to champion that year was an animated film. And that is going to be the first of 2 honorable mentions I'm going to discuss today. And it's a very important film, which I'll explain, and that is Wolfgang Reitherman's The Jungle Book. This was the last film that Walt Disney worked on in some capacity before he passed away in 1966, and then got frozen, as some might say. Now, Jungle Book is a very solid film. I don't think it's necessarily one of my all-time favorite Disney films, but I do want to acknowledge it because it's a very fascinating energy. So they had hired a folk singer, Terry Gilkyson, to write a score, but it was deemed to be too dark. So they brought in the Sherman Brothers, who had done the music for Mary Poppins, which was clearly a lot more lively for the most part. But they kept one song of Gilkyson's in the movie, and it, not surprisingly, was the best song. And it did get nominated for Best Song this year, and that was The Bare Necessities. Now, the fact that Talk to the Animals from Dr. Dolittle beat The Bare Necessities is laughable. Now, if you watch Dr. Dolittle, which I would not recommend you watch Dr. Dolittle, for the love of God, don't. It's awful. But Rex Harrison sings the song, and it's like, that just sounds boring. Like, it doesn't, like, the score definitely doesn't, like, work for him in the same way that playing Henry Higgins did. But if you watch the Oscar clip from that year, Sammy Davis Jr. sings Talk to the Animals. But he does it in kind of his own, like, rap pack, like, if you can talk to the animals, walk with the animals. And it's just like, yeah, like, I get it, it's peppier. It sounds better than it did in the film, but why that over The Bare Necessities? And that's not even to mention Paul Simon, who didn't submit his paperwork in time, and none of the songs from The Graduate got in here. Like, imagine if The Sound of Silence was here, or even Mrs. Robinson. But alas, anywho, the last honorable mention I'm going to bring up is Richard Brooks's In Cold Blood. Richard Brooks is a great director. He's an interesting director because he came from the old Hollywood system, but he really adapted to the changes of Hollywood. Because In Cold Blood is most famous for being the nonfiction book that Truman Capote wrote about two men who murder a family of four in Kansas. It also has an extra layer of discomfort considering Robert Blake plays one of the murderers in it. And Richard Brooks would go on to do Looking for Mr. Goodbar, which was a great performance from Diane Keaton, the same year she was in Annie Hall, no less, and showed her range. I do think you should check out In Cold Blood. It's a very fascinating film, yet another example of Hollywood shifting towards new times. But as we enter the top 10, we're going to start off with Mr. Charisma himself, Paul Newman, and that is in Stuart Rosenberg's Cool Hand Luke. A great prison film, and also an example of how horrible the prison system is, because Paul Newman's character is in prison for damaging parking meters. Like,
oh God, those poor parking meters. How will people pay? How will people parallel park?
he challenges the system. You also have the great character actor Strother Martin in this, who has that great line that, what we've got here is failure to communicate. To be fair, I grew up in West Virginia, so I would like to think that accent is not offensive. I'm not saying that Cool Hand Luke is any kind of masterpiece, but Paul Newman was able to buoy up any film he was in, because he was an actor who had immense charisma, was incredibly handsome, but had the acting chops to back it up. And this is indeed one of his best performances, and frankly, would have been worthy to win for in the Best Actor category. Now, for number 9, we have František Vlasil's Marketa Lazarova. This one I am including despite the fact that I have only seen it once, and it has been at least like 20 years. So I will say that it could be that I watch it again and maybe it'll shift. Maybe I'll raise it higher on the list. Maybe I would take it off barely. Maybe I'd not like it anymore. Who knows? The titular character is the daughter of a feudal lord named Lazar, and she wants to be a nun, but she is actually kidnapped. It is an act of vengeance against Lazar because he refused to help them with a defense pact. Also, I do like that this film is set at a time where Christianity has not quite taken over and paganism is still a very prominent thing. But I do feel like this film is a very diabolical look at how despicable humanity can be. And also, it's like nothing truly is as it seems. And I do feel compelled to check this one out again because it has been a very long time. Next up at number 8 is a documentary by one of the legends of the form, D.A. Pennebaker, and this is Bob Dylan, Don't Look Back. This one takes place at a time when Bob Dylan was getting a lot of flack from people because he was abandoning the folk side for electric. And we just saw a lot of that play out in the movie Complete Unknown. But this one I do enjoy watching because, as many of us know, Bob Dylan is a bit of an enigma. He's very reclusive at times. He doesn't lend himself to a lot of exposure. He's also known for being a bit prickly. And this film manages to show you a lot about him, but still keeps you at that kind of indelible distance. But you're still very fascinated by him, and it also goes without saying the man was a genius. I mean, he won a special Pulitzer Prize for a reason. And yes, people like to make fun of that distinctive voice, like the times they are changing. Like, yes, he's not traditionally pretty in voice, but it just works. A lot of the best singers have a quirk about them that makes them very distinctive, and he was one of them. And this was a great documentary from Pennebaker, and we will be seeing more of his films on my list in the future. Now, at number 7, we have a film that, for the longest time, was associated with being a 68 film, and it did win an Oscar in 1968, but it actually was technically released first in 1967. So, for all intents and purposes, I'm including it here. And it's a very important film, and it was the great breakout for Mel Brooks, and that is The Producers. The groundbreaking nature of The Producers can't be ignored, because keep in mind, this was just over 2 decades after the end of World War II and the death of Hitler. This movie uses the idea of Hitler in a musical property so that these two men can fraud little old ladies out of their money, and that way, when the show flops, they'll take the money and flee to Rio. I will say that The Producers works better for me as a stage musical. The reason for that is because I do like how Brooks and his writing partner Thomas Meehan altered the ending a bit, because I do think the ending works a lot better in the stage show than it does here in the film. Having said that, though, it's really hard to deny the fiery chemistry between Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder. And Gene Wilder is one of my acting idols, so it's kind of hard to like deny how brilliant he was in this role. And I am glad he got an Oscar nomination for it. If you are used to the musical first and then go back to watch this movie, you are going to be thrown for a loop. It's a very different vibe, but I do really admire the bold aggressiveness that Brooks took with this film, because they did not want it to be even called Springtime for Hitler. They wanted Springtime for Mussolini. And in fact, the original title for the film was Springtime for Hitler, which he did eventually cave on. And Mel Brooks, as of this video, is still with us. He's 100 years old. Next up, we have a director that I haven't talked much about on this channel yet, and that is Jacques Tati. He did not make a lot of films. I believe he only made like 6 or 7 films. 6, 7. Tati is a filmmaker that was compared to, and I do think it's a fairly apt comparison, he was essentially the French Charlie Chaplin. Whereas Chaplin was someone who would like walk with that distinct waddle, he was very like clumsy and overt, but also very unassuming. Whereas Tati, who directed in the films as well that he acted in, his character of Monsieur Hulot, he's very tall, he has like the bowler hat and the cane and the coat, but he kind of walks with a glide, and because of his height, he's very noticeable with how clumsy he is. And I do think that his masterwork is my number 6 film, and that is Playtime. This man really went all out for his craft. All of the sets in this film were constructed for the film. And when you watch the film, you're going to be amazed by that. Like, it's remarkable that this was even accomplished. And it was accomplished because Tati essentially mortgaged his life. Like, we're talking almost Francis Ford Coppola levels of psychosis. It's a very big risk. I don't know if Tati filed bankruptcy like Coppola did, but I could have looked that up, but I didn't, but oh well. Playtime is a great type of film to show people that are getting into foreign film, because there's not a lot of dialogue, so you can kind of get immersed into the world, and that's something Tati was always great with. And also there's a bittersweet quality to it, because it's like the world is changing, technology is becoming more and more apparent, and it's hard to keep up with that energy, and that's what this film taps into very well. It looks glorious in 4K. I would like to buy the Criterion disc in 4K, but I would be inclined to wait to see if they re-release the Tati set all in 4K. Otherwise, I might hold out for a little bit for that, but we'll see what happens there. Now, at number 5, we return to another director that I love, Louis Buñuel. And this one's a little bit of a different film for him, but it is a great film. It also stars Catherine Deneuve, and this is Belle du Jour. In this film, her character of Séverine is married to a doctor, but she is not able to have sex with him due to past trauma. But she is deeply in love with him. Like their marriage, like they do love each other. Like so there's not really an issue there. But for some reason, she can't sleep with him. But she will offer her services to other men. So she does that during the day while he's away at work. But there is one man who becomes more prominent in her orbit. And let's say maybe that doesn't work out quite so well for her. Deneuve is stunning in this, not just as an actress, but I think this might be the most beautiful the woman has ever looked. And I mean, it's kind of hard to like narrow it down like that because Catherine Deneuve, in my opinion, is one of the most stunning people to have ever lived. The film is very bold. Like you have this woman who has this sexual trauma, but because of that trauma, she does have this strong urge to explore sadomasochism, which, of course, I mean, nowadays, a lot of people are still very concerned about depicting sex on film. And here we are in the 60s, very like plain for all to see, but then again, it's a film from France. Because this is a Buñuel film, he does give it a lot of surreal edges, and that's where you can really tell his like stamp on it. And I mean, Buñuel made a lot of great films, and this is definitely right up there with his best. And let's just say we'll be returning to Catherine Deneuve in just a little bit. But in the meantime, we're going to go to number 4. Now, this selection might anger some of you. It's not that it's low, but it might be low for some of you because this is often considered like one of, if not the pinnacle of film from this year. And because it was the true advancement in film from Hollywood. And that is Arthur Penn's Bonnie and Clyde. Now, obviously, the story is very fascinating. Bonnie and Clyde were bank robbers, lovers going around the country, shooting, killing, stealing the money. We rob banks. Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway obviously have smoldering chemistry. They're electric to watch. I do think that how they designed Faye Dunaway in this is very. She just clearly looks like a woman from the 60s being transplanted to the 30s. Like, it's not accurate whatsoever, but she's a compelling screen presence. You also have the great Gene Hackman in this, which was his breakout role, and he probably should have won the Oscar for this. Michael J. Pollard, even Gene Wilder in a very small role is in this and is very memorable. Now, I want to talk about Estelle Parsons a moment. Her Oscar win in supporting actress for this film is Blanche, was often very divisive because some people really truly adore her performance and others find it to be shrill and obnoxious. Yes, she is, but I'm in the camp that says that that's what the performance required. I love Estelle Parsons in this, and I do feel that watching her that entire film screaming and wailing, and then at the end when she's praying for like a little bit of mercy and then she discovers she's losing her eyesight, you can't help but sort of pity her but also kind of love it at the same time. Bonnie and Clyde, I do want to say, is a very crucial film for Hollywood. The violence levels, I mean, this was the time, like when it first came out, a lot of critics trashed it for that purpose. But a young Roger Ebert, who had just started reviewing films, I believe that very year, championed the film and deemed it a new classic. And he was right, because the film truly changed the landscape of Hollywood, and thankfully so. So now we're going to dive back into France for a moment. And this is a film that has been dubbed the first example of neo noir, where you have those film noir elements of those like 1940s and 50s Warren Brothers epics, like Double Indemnity, for example. But this one is a great glimpse into like the Chinatowns, the body heats that'll be coming out in the 70s and 80s. And this is Jean-Pierre Melville's Le Samurai, which is yet another brilliant performance from Alain Delon, who was, despite his problems, quite possibly an actor of such great charisma on par with Paul Newman. The way that this man looks in these films is stunning. Like every film he's in, he just looks like a painting come to life. Like the way Visconti films him in Rocco and his brothers, like how he looked in Purple Noon, how he looks in this, how he'll eventually look in Le Cercle Rouge. Like he's just a stunning looking man. And like Paul Newman, he has the acting chops to match. So Delhomme plays a hitman named Jeff, and he lives very meagerly. All he really cares about is his work, and he gets a new contract, par for the course. But what he doesn't realize is that someone else has put a hit out on him, and at the same time, a commissaire is on his tail. The atmosphere of Le Samurai is very gloomy. Like there's a lot of like slate and like slate grays, blues, but somehow it's just so gorgeous. Actually, come to think of it, the color scheme reminds me a lot of like some of the images from Playtime. But that film obviously has a lighter edge to it. But this one really captures like that cold, gritty feeling that also Melville would go on to have in Le Cercle Rouge and also Army of Shadows, which will be coming up later in the decade. So Le Samurai is a great forerunner to what would become the neo-noir genre. And it's also been a while since I've seen it. I would like to check that one out again. Now we're going to stay in France because at number 2, we're going to get a little colorful. We're going to get a little more sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows because Jacques Demy is back and Catherine Deneuve is back with The Young Girls of Rochefort, which is a lively, joyous romp that is completely different from Umbrellas of Cherbourg. Now, if you think about it for a moment, it is funny that Demy is like, what's his formula? Well, let's take a noun, umbrellas or young girls, put them in a place, Cherbourg, Rochefort, and make it a musical and cast Catherine Deneuve. The big difference is Umbrellas of Cherbourg was sung all the way through, and the color scheme was very pastel oriented, but it was also much more of a drama and had a gloomier sense, hence rain and umbrellas and all that. But Young Girls of Rochefort is more a musical in the traditional sense. It was Demy's love letter to the grand MGM musicals from the 40s and 50s. And frankly, it basically surpasses all of them. You have like Singing in the Rain and Meet Me in St. Louis, like those are obviously great films. But Young Girls is like a shot of sunshine. Like you basically are freebasing sunshine with this film. Because whereas Umbrellas was essentially just a straight told story with singing, Young Girls has dialogue, so there's that aspect, but there's also dancing, which is something that Umbrellas did not have. So Young Girls follows two sisters, Delphine and Solange, which are played by Deneuve, and her real life sister, Francois Dorlac, which Dorlac was actually Catherine Deneuve's real last name. They live in this seaside town of Rochefort, but it is their dream to go to Paris and be successful. But then the film takes on this like lovely like kaleidoscope of people passing through the town and people looking to get out of the town, like misconnections, reconnections. It's kind of hard to like just put the story into words. It's a film where you just want to put it on and just get soaked up into that world. Because, like I mentioned, umbrellas have that very pastel color scheme. Young Girls is very like red, yellow, blue, like primary colors. Sprinkle in a little bit of like bright whites and greens. It just feels like a very peppy, lively film, and it's hard to like not get overjoyed by it. And I will say, I do still prefer Umbrellas as a film to Young Girls, but they're both vastly different experiences, and both are worth watching. I will say, though, I don't own it because I'm waiting for them to release it in 4K because this film truly needs it. I mean, like, I would love to watch this film in 4K. So, Criterion, get on it. Plus, next year is its 60th anniversary, so let's go. But now we've made it to number 1. Number 1 is not exactly a surprising choice. Some of you might disagree with me on this, but I will say that this film played a very pivotal role in my movie-going life as a young teenager. It's also the other film that I mentioned would be a nice shot on the arm towards the new Hollywood movement, and that is Mike Nichols' The Graduate. I was hanging out with my friend Dan, who's also a film buff like me. Shout out to Dan. And he was telling me how he thought The Graduate was just fine. But see, here's the thing. As much as I love this film, I can also understand why some might view it that way. And I think the fact that I saw it at such a young age kind of helps me still hold that high regard for it. And also, there's a lot that I really love about this film. Like, yes, there are elements of it that still feel a little bit trapped in a time that doesn't feel like too late 60s and more like early 60s. But the cinematography is so great. Like, there's a lot of like those like awkward handheld shots. There's also that amazing shot of like you have Dustin Hoffman from behind, Catherine Ross in front of him, and then Anne Bancroft in the doorway behind her. It's a great composition. Like, I love that shot. You also have the Paul Simon score, which is phenomenal, which I alluded to earlier. But also just the energy of the film. Like, Dustin Hoffman, which was his film debut, by the way, just feels very unique to any real film that I think was coming around at that time in a lot of ways. Like, you can tell that he's an actor that's very different from anyone that had come along up to that point. And you also have the fact that he is graduating from, well, he did graduate from college, and he's intending to go off to graduate school, but he comes home from college for the summer. His parents are proud of him, but they're showering like him with this party. He's awkward. He doesn't know what he wants to do with his life. But then his neighbor, Mrs. Robinson, whose husband is his own father's business partner, seduces him. The Graduate is a film that spoke to me in a way where I valued sense of like not knowing what you want out of life. Like, I saw the film, like, I was very young. I was like 12 or 13, but I was someone who also whole religion aspect, like, I didn't know what I wanted. Like, I didn't know what the future would hold for me. I wasn't even sure what I wanted to, like, for myself in a lot of ways. And here, come here, Castiel. Castiel's gonna sit me, hopefully, as I pet him like a Bond villain. I It's hard to say why certain films speak to you and other films don't. Like, why does my friend Dan think this film is just fine? But okay, fine, leave. It's why I love talking about film with other film people because it does intrigue me what I love that other people might not, and vice versa. And The Graduate is a film that, like I said, I can understand why it might not appeal to some people had they seen it later on than other films. Now we're going to wrap up with 1967. Now, as we approach 1968, it's one of those years where I was like, you know what? Like, I need to like look up and see what came out because I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. But yes, so be on the lookout for 1968, and then of course 1969, and then after that's all complete, we're going to go back in time to the 50s. I already have the list drafted for the 50s. We'll see if anything shifts around, but I'm looking forward to getting to that, and of course, obviously the 70s, 80s, 90s, so on. I'll tackle those years as well. But in the meantime, thank you all for watching, and one more thing. So if any of you do want me to talk about stuff like The Simpsons or anything like TV or even theater, let me know in the comments, and also like and subscribe. I would like to get this channel like up and running a little bit more. And also, by the way, I do intend on getting a new microphone. I mean, I have a lot going on currently, which I won't go into here. A lot of great things, I will say, but still, I'm navigating a lot. So bear with me with that, and I'll see you all soon.